It's the Winklers. I finally got Mr. Winkler to get off work early enough for us to get this video done. So, I have your questions here. I'm going to read them. I don't have all of them because we have stuff to do today, children. We can't just be asking Mr. Winkler questions. So I can only ask some of them, and he hasn't seen them, so he might have to guess on some of the answers. Okay? All right, Mr. Winkler.
Yes.
A lot of questions about school.
Okay.
So we want to know where you went to school, what you went to school for, how long were you there, what school did you go to, all that fun stuff.
I went to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln and Omaha. My degree typically takes 4 years, 5 years to complete. I took a lot of science classes, a lot of biology and ecology. Some stuff specific to wildlife, some stuff specific to plants, but a lot of science classes.
All right, very nice. So UNO and UNL?
Yes.
Very cool. All right, Mr. Winkler.
Yep.
What's the coolest project you've ever done?
The coolest project was probably doing pheasant research right here in Southwest Nebraska. Consisted of catching birds and putting very high frequency collars on the bird, so we were able to track them using telemetry. That was to gain insight on how pheasants interacted with predators and what cover they were selecting due to hunting pressure. So you can think of humans as predators too. Every fall when we go out and hunt pheasants, we're acting like a predator. So that was probably one of the coolest projects I've worked on.
Now, Mr. Winkler, speaking of catching pheasants, I know he has a really crazy story about how you catch pheasants. So can you tell us how you do that?
Yes. So we call it night lighting. So obviously we do it at night. The birds are roosted at night on the ground. They are obviously a ground bird, and they are roosting in tall grass. So we drive a pickup through the tall grass, and we have people essentially chase after birds with big nets. So we have people sitting on the front of a truck, and when they see the bird moving through the grass, we try to drive up on it as fast as we can and throw a net on top of it. So it's pretty fun.
Mr. Winkler, do you have to play anything to make sure the birds don't hear you?
We do, yeah. So the part of the process is playing really loud music. So as you get closer to the birds, they will flush if they hear you coming. They will take off and fly when they hear your footsteps coming. So the loud music kind of disorients them and kind of disguises your footsteps when you're getting right up behind a bird. So it's pretty fun.
That's crazy bananas. I'll tell you, of all my years teaching, I've never had to do anything like that yet. Maybe it'll change now because COVID. So we'll see. Okay. So a lot of questions about your current job. So they want to know what wildlife biologists do, what parts you like about your job. And you don't volunteer, right? You work for them?
I do get paid. I do a fair share of volunteering of my own time for lots of different conservation organizations. But I do get paid for my current job. So I essentially work with private landowners to do all sorts of stuff in the name of conservation. Some things, do include wildlife, and pretty much everything I do includes wildlife for the most part. But we are working with private landowners, so I don't work on any areas that are typically open to the public. We work with folks on seeding cropland back to grass areas. We make sure folks are creating those grassy areas for wildlife. You can see lots of different kinds of grass really aren't beneficial to anything really. So we do want to make sure that the grass and wildflowers we're putting out there actually make sense to put out there for the specific types of wildlife that we are after. Um, and 97% of Nebraska is privately owned, meaning somebody owns it. It's not open to the public. So, working one on one with private landowners in a state like Nebraska is um, how conservation gets done in this state.
Very cool. What made you want to go into science? Like, what made you decide to go to school for science or become a wildlife biologist? What happened? Even when you were little, because you like science when you were little too, right?
I did, yeah. So I guess it was just always being outside and looking for animals and doing cool stuff. So a love of animals and being outside and um, starting to understand the ecology of the uh, the birds and the wild places that we have here in the state.
Very cool. All right. So, do you like pheasants, or pheasants your favorite thing or animal? We could even say.
I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head what my favorite animal is. There's too many of them, but I do enjoy pheasants and other grassland birds like quail and prairie chickens and sharp-tailed grouse. Um,
We just got to see some prairie chickens in our video that we just watched.
Perfect. Yep.
They didn't know we had those here.
Well, we sure do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like grassland birds, and we live in a grassland state. So prior to settlement, the entire state of Nebraska, from east to west and north to south, and even from Canada all the way down to Texas, was at one point in time a one gigantic intact piece of grass. Um, so that's a lot of what we do in my job, is trying to put that habitat back out there that was here before we needed to feed the world. That's why there's a lot of agriculture obviously going on out there. So that is a big portion of my job is taking those acres out of agricultural production that don't really make sense to farm anymore.
Okay. Well, Mr. Winkler, do you just work in Red Willow, or where do you work?
So I work in Red Willow, Hitchcock, Frontier, and Hayes County. We do a little bit of work kind of statewide, but there is a lot of other people in my same position that covers the other counties in Nebraska. So we do work together at some points in time. But most of the time, I'm right here in McCook or Hay Center or Trenton or Curtis.
And how long have you been a wildlife biologist?
5 years now.
Very cool. Is there anything that you've done in science, like not even just wildlife biology, but in science that's been really gross that you're like, ew, this is gross, but I'm still going to do it because of science?
I did work in a pathology laboratory in a hospital. I was collecting blood samples at that point in time, and we had to deal with all sorts of bodily fluids of all different kinds.
He's talking about
Yeah. So, but that was important, and that was a fun job, and we got to figure out, what problems people were having, and got to help people that way. So,
nice. So much science you've gone through. Okay, so I have a couple questions about the beetles. So how long have you been doing the beetle study with? Is that through UNL?
Yep. So that's the Game and Parks pitch in, and the University of Nebraska pitches in to essentially study the American burying beetle, which is an endangered beetle right here in Nebraska that doesn't live too far away from us, just up in the Lusk Canyons. So essentially, in between here and North Platte, there is a biologically unique landscape. So That means there's not really another place around that is just like that place, and there's lots of special things about it, and that's why we are worried about conserving those areas, because they do have they are home for the American burying beetle. So it is important that we keep those places intact so we don't let another thing go extinct off the planet.
What's the most beetles you found in one trap?
So we typically don't find very many burying beetles. So we've probably caught, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 in a trap when I've been up there.
But like of all the different types.
Yeah, there's lots of other kinds of beetles that we do catch in the trap. So, there could be 4, 5, 600 other types of beetles in there. So
you guys saw that video. That'd be crazy. I'm glad. What was there, like 300 in the one that I had?
Yeah.
And I thought that was too many. So good thing I wasn't there that day. If you could be a different kind of scientist, what kind of scientist would you be?
That's a really hard question. I don't know.
You stumped me.
I don't know. I think I just like this too much, so I think this is my only choice.
Yeah, he just decided he actually just wanted to do this. He's not jealous of any other scientist. Sometimes we hear that other scientists are jealous of him, though. We have some friends that are in science, and they always say, "Oh, you get to go outside and do science? I would love to go outside and do science." So you must have just kind of a cool job, I guess. Now, what's the difference? So this is a pretty quick one. How do you tell the difference between a female pheasant and a male pheasant?
So, specific to pheasants, they are sexually dimorphic, which means the male and female look different. Not all bird species are that way, but typically the male birds are going to have the more colorful plumage, whereas the hens or female birds are going to be a more drab color. Easier to hide when they're on the nest and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that sounds like protective coloration. Sounds like maybe we've talked about that. Random. Do you know how many bones a pheasant has? I don't know if he knows this one.
I do not remember right off the top of my head. I know I've looked it up before, but don't remember. I want to say it was like 101 or 105, something weird like that. But I could be wrong.
You guys,
you can make her do it.
Oh, or you can Google it. Y'all have the capability. Excuse me. Have you ever had to deal with any snakes or lizards?
Not really too many lizards. There's definitely tiny little lizards that live here in Nebraska, and some of them live right out in our own backyard. But most of the ones I see are extremely fast, so there's no way I'd be able to catch up to them. There is lots and lots of reptiles and frogs and other kinds of stuff, and that does include snakes. So we don't kill any snakes or anything. We just let them go. They're not going to mess around with you if you're not messing around with them. So even the rattlesnakes that I've seen out there, they are more interested in getting away from us than hurting us. So,
all right. Now a couple really weird ones. And if you don't know the answer to these, that's fine. Now, you guys should know this. I've already told you, Mr. Winkler is not a big fan of trees in our area, but Mr. Winkler, can trees go extinct?
They sure can. And specific to Nebraska, I mean, plants as a whole, there are threatened and endangered plant species, just like there would be animal species. So, short answer, yes.
Okay. All right, and now here's a really weird one. Who asked these kind of questions? I know who it is. I'm looking right at you right now. You know who you are. How dangerous are colossal squids?
That I have no clue. I don't think there's much of a chance finding one of those around here in southwest Nebraska. So
probably not. I think those are pretty ocean specific, guys. And so he's a wildlife biologist, not a marine biologist. All right. Excuse me. I'm trying to see if there's anything. Okay, what's your favorite food?
My favorite food. That's a tough one, but I don't think you can go wrong with pizza.
Yes, we eat a lot of pizza. It's fine. I think that's about it. Do you have
Okay.
anything else? We just learned about John Muir and Aldo Leopold. Do you have anything to add?
Nope. That's kind of all the questions that you asked me. That's it, I guess.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations if the kids want to get into science or know more about wildlife biology or hunting or anything like that? What can they do?
Yeah, yep. Obviously, you guys have the internet nowadays, and probably know how to use it way better than we do because we're old.
It's true.
So there is always volunteer opportunities for conservation organizations like Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, and then state agencies like the Nebraska Game and Parks, the federal agencies like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Going to those places online, seeing if they have any volunteer opportunities, and then just taking a bunch of science classes.
Yeah, that's how I learned most about science. Okay, so Mr. Winkler, before we go, I'm going to call up the dogs. Dog one. Let's see if he listens. Come on. I feel like you guys always get to see Leopold. He's less exciting. So here's Leopold. And then Squire is very involved right now. He really wants to be on video. I'm hoping you guys can see him because it's kind of dark. Oh, there. Oh, see, now he's running away. Come here, Squire. Oh, you know what? I told you he only loves Mr. Winkler. So let's see if I turn it this way. There he is. There he is. He's the cutest and the best dog of all the dogs. Leopold's the worst. Okay. Well, Mr. Winkler, we really appreciate you
You're
taking
welcome.
time out of your very busy day. But we got to move on. So we're not talking about biology anymore. Shh, don't tell him. Because, oh, sorry, the dogs are getting crazy. Don't tell him, but we're going to move on to matter now. So, okay. Let's talk about matter. Woo! Bye, guys. See you right now.